My name is Alaric, and until recently I thought I had it all. I'm 46 years old and work as an IT specialist in Austin, Texas. My life with my wife, Brant, was, or so I believe, the picture of suburban bliss. We had a comfortable home, two wonderful kids, and a life filled with what seemed like genuine love and happiness. Brant was a stay-at-home mom, and she excelled at it. She was the glue that held our family together, the heart of our home, or so I thought. It started subtly, almost imperceptibly. Brant began spending more time on her phone, always with a secretive smile playing on her lips. She'd quickly minimize the screen whenever I walked into the room, a gesture that initially didn't register as anything more than her being engrossed in social media. But then came the late nights at book club, which seemed to coincide with her dressing up more than usual, wearing perfumes she knew I loved, but only on those specific nights. I chalked it up to her wanting to feel good about herself, a natural desire after years of dedicating her life to our family. I wanted to be supportive, so I didn't pry. I trusted her implicitly, a trust that had been built over nearly 2 decades of marriage. That was my first mistake. The first real red flag came during our anniversary dinner. We were at our favorite Italian restaurant, a place filled with memories of our early dates and special occasions. I had planned a romantic evening, complete with a handwritten card expressing my undying love for her. But Brant seemed distant, preoccupied. Her eyes kept darting to her phone, and she barely made eye contact with me throughout the meal. "Everything okay, Brant?" I asked, reaching across the table to take her hand. She jumped slightly, as if startled, and forced a smile. "Oh yes, darling, everything's fine. Just work stuff, work stuff. I thought you weren't working right now." "Yes, well, volunteering stuff then. You know, for the school." Her explanation sounded flimsy, even to my own ears, but I let it go. I didn't want to ruin our anniversary dinner with unnecessary suspicion. I wanted to believe her desperately. The next few weeks were a blur of similar incidents. She'd come home late from errands, her explanations vague and unconvincing. She started taking her phone into the bathroom with her, claiming she liked to read articles while she soaked in the tub. Our intimacy dwindled, replaced by a coldness that I couldn't ignore. I felt like I was living with a stranger. One Saturday morning, while Brant was out grocery shopping, I decided to do some cleaning around the house. I went into our bedroom to gather the laundry, and that's when I saw it. Tucked away in her nightstand drawer beneath a pile of lingerie was a second phone, a burner phone. My heart sank. I hesitated for a moment, my mind racing with possibilities. Maybe it was a work phone she'd forgotten to mention. Maybe it was for emergencies. But deep down, I knew the truth. This wasn't innocent. This was deliberate. With trembling hands, I turned on the phone. It was password protected, but after a few failed attempts, I managed to guess her birthday. The phone unlocked, revealing a string of text messages and photos that shattered my world into a million pieces. The messages were explicit, filled with declarations of love and longing. The photos were even worse. They showed Brant in compromising positions with a man I didn't recognize. A younger man with a chiseled jaw and piercing blue eyes. My stomach churned with a mixture of rage and nausea. I scrolled through the messages, each one a knife twisting deeper into my heart. The man's name was Corbin, and he and Brant had been having an affair for months. They'd been meeting at hotels, restaurants, and even our own home while I was at work. The audacity, the sheer betrayal, was beyond comprehension. I sat on the edge of the bed, the phone clutched in my hand, tears streaming down my face. My entire life, everything I had believed in, was a lie. The woman I loved, the mother of my children, had been deceiving me all along. I felt like I was suffocating, drowning in a sea of heartbreak and despair. When Brant finally returned home, hours later, I was waiting for her. I stood in the living room, the phone displayed on the coffee table, my face a mask of fury and pain. She walked in, her face flushed, a shopping bag in her hand. "Alaric, what's wrong?" she asked, her voice laced with false concern. I didn't say a word. I simply pointed to the phone. Her eyes widened in horror, her face draining of color. She knew she'd been caught. "Alaric, I can explain," she stammered, her voice barely a whisper. "Explain. Explain how you could betray me like this. Explain how you could lie to me for months. Explain how you could jeopardize our family for some boy toy." I roared, my voice echoing through the house. She burst into tears, falling to her knees. "I'm so sorry, Alaric. I didn't mean for this to happen. It just happened. It just happened. You think that makes it any better? You think that excuses your behavior? I was lonely," she sobbed. "You were always working, always busy. I needed attention. I needed to feel desired. You decided to cheat on me. That's your solution. To throw away everything we've built together for a cheap thrill. It wasn't just a cheap thrill," she cried. I think I'm in love with him." Words were like a punch to the gut. I recoiled in disbelief, my anger momentarily replaced by a profound sadness. "You're in love with him? After all these years, after everything we've been through, you're telling me you're in love with someone else?" She nodded, her face buried in her hands. "I know it's wrong, Alaric. I know I've hurt you, but I can't help how I feel." I stared at her, my heart aching with a pain I had never known. The woman I loved was gone, replaced by a stranger who had betrayed me in the worst possible way. I knew in that moment that our marriage was over. "Out," I said, my voice flat and emotionless. "Get out of my house, Alaric, please," she begged. "Don't do this. We can work through this. We can go to counseling. There's nothing to work through," I said. "You've made your choice. Now live with the consequences." She hesitated for a moment, then slowly rose to her feet. She gathered her purse and coat, her eyes filled with tears. As she walked out the door, she turned back to me one last time. "I'm so sorry, Alaric," she whispered. "I truly am." I didn't respond. I simply watched as she disappeared into the night, leaving me alone in the wreckage of our shattered marriage. The next few weeks were a living hell. I filed for divorce, and the legal proceedings were messy and contentious. Bront fought me every step of the way, demanding alimony and custody of the kids. I refused to give in. I wouldn't let her take anything more from me. My friends and family rallied around me, offering their support and comfort. But nothing could ease the pain of betrayal. I felt like a fool, a naive idiot who had been blind to the truth for far too long. One evening, my best friend, Leopold, came over to check on me. We sat in the living room, drinking beer and talking about everything and nothing. He could sense my pain, and he tried his best to distract me. "No, Alaric," he said, "you can't let her get away with this. You need to do something to make her pay. What do you suggest?" I asked, my voice laced with bitterness. "I don't know," he said, "but you need to find a way to get your revenge. Make her regret what she's done." His words resonated with me. I had been so focused on the divorce proceedings and my own pain that I hadn't even considered seeking revenge. But the more I thought about it, the more appealing the idea became. Bront had destroyed my life, and she deserved to suffer the consequences. I started digging into Corbin's background. I hired a private investigator to gather information about him, his job, his family, everything. I wanted to know everything about the man who had stolen my wife. What I discovered was even more shocking than I had imagined. Corbin wasn't just some random guy. He was a local news anchor, a rising star in the Austin media scene. He had a squeaky clean image, a reputation for integrity and honesty. An idea began to form in my mind, a plan for revenge that was both audacious and satisfying. I knew I had to be careful to play my cards right, but I was determined to expose Bront and Corbin for who they really were. I contacted a local tabloid reporter, a woman named Isadora who had a reputation for breaking scandalous stories. I told her I had information about a prominent news anchor who was having an affair with a married woman. She was immediately interested. I met with Isadora in a discreet location, providing her with all the evidence I had gathered: the text messages, the photos, the private investigator's report. She was stunned by the sheer volume of evidence. "This is incredible, Alaric," she said. "This could be the biggest story of the year." "Want you to publish it," I said. "I want the world to know what these two have been up to." "Are you sure about this?" she asked. "This could have serious consequences for everyone involved." "That's the point," I said. "They deserve it." Isadora agreed to publish the story, but she insisted on verifying the information independently. She contacted Corbin's employer, the local news station, and confronted them with the evidence. The station was initially skeptical, but after reviewing the evidence, they were forced to admit the truth. The story broke the following day, sending shockwaves through Austin and beyond. Corbin was immediately suspended from his job, his reputation in tatters. Bront was publicly shamed, ostracized by her friends and family. I watched it all unfold with a sense of grim satisfaction. My revenge had been swift and decisive. Bront and Corbin had paid the price for their betrayal. But as the dust settled, I realized that revenge wasn't as fulfilling as I had imagined. Yes, Bront and Corbin had suffered, but so had I. The scandal had dragged my name through the mud, and my children were traumatized by the fallout. I realized that the only way to truly move on was to forgive Bront and Corbin, not for their sake, but for my own. I had to let go of the anger and bitterness that had consumed me for so long. It wasn't easy, but I eventually managed to find a sense of peace. I focused on rebuilding my life, on being a good father to my children, and on finding happiness again. Years later, I ran into Bront at a local grocery store. She looked older, worn down. She was with Corbin, who was pushing a stroller. They looked like any other ordinary couple. We exchanged awkward greetings, and then Bront said, "Alaric, I wanted to apologize for everything I did. I know I hurt you deeply, and I'm truly sorry." I looked at her, and for the first time I didn't feel any anger or resentment. I simply felt a sense of pity. "I forgive you, Bront," I said. "I hope you can find happiness." She smiled weakly, and then they walked away. I watched them go, feeling a sense of closure. I had finally moved on. I learned a valuable lesson from my experience: that revenge is a dish best left untouched. It may provide temporary satisfaction, but it ultimately consumes the person seeking it. The only way to truly heal is to forgive, to let go, and to focus on building a better future. But the story doesn't end there. About a year after that chance encounter at the grocery store, I received a call from Isadora, the tabloid reporter. She had a new story for me, and this one was even more shocking than the last. "Alaric," she said, her voice filled with excitement, "I've just uncovered something incredible about Corbin. Something you're not going to believe. What is it?" I asked, my curiosity piqued. "Remember how you said Corbin had a squeaky clean image?" she said. "Well, it turns out that's not entirely true. He's been hiding a secret for years." "What kind of secret?" "He's gay," she said. "He's been living a double life for years, hiding his true sexuality from the world." I was stunned into silence. "You're kidding me," I finally managed to say. "I wish I were," she said. "I have proof. Photos, emails, everything. He's been having secret affairs with men for years, even while he was with Bront." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. The man who had stolen my wife was gay. It was almost too absurd to be true. "So what are you going to do with this information?" I asked. "I'm going to publish it, of course," she said. "This is too big of a story to ignore." "But what about Bront?" I asked. "How will she react?" "That's not my problem," she said. "She made her bed, now she has to lie in it." Isadora published the story the following day, and the reaction was even more explosive than the first time. Corbin's career was completely destroyed, and he was publicly humiliated. Bront was devastated, heartbroken by the revelation that her lover had been living a double life. I felt a strange mixture of emotions. On the one hand, I felt vindicated. Corbin had gotten what he deserved. But on the other hand, I felt sorry for Bront. She had been betrayed once again, this time by the man she had left me for. A few weeks later, I received a call from Bront. She was crying, her voice barely audible. "Alaric," she sobbed, "I don't know what to do. My life is a mess. Corbin has left me, and everyone hates me." I hesitated for a moment, then said, "Bront, I'm sorry for what you're going through, but you brought this on yourself. You made your choices, and now you have to live with the consequences." "No," she said. "But I don't know how to go on. I've lost everything." "You haven't lost everything," I said. "You still have your children. Focus on them, on being a good mother. That's the only way you're going to get through this." She thanked me for my advice, and then we hung up. I never heard from her again. I often wonder what happened to Bront and Corbin. Did they ever find happiness? Did they ever learn from their mistakes? I don't know, and frankly, I don't care. I've moved on with my life. I've found love again, with a woman who appreciates and respects me. I've learned to trust my instincts, to be more discerning about the people I let into my life. And most importantly, I've learned that revenge is never the answer. The only way to truly heal is to forgive, to let go, and to focus on building a better future, even when that future seems impossible to imagine. But there's one final twist to this tale. A few years after the scandal, I received a letter from an unknown sender. Inside was a DNA report. It stated that my two children were not biologically mine. Bront's affair had started long before I discovered Corbin. The man in all those late nights at book club was my children's father. I left town and changed my name. I have no children. She stole my name, my life, and any chance of happiness. I will never forgive her. This is my story of betrayal, revenge, and the long road to healing. It's a story I hope you can learn from, a reminder that even in the darkest of times, there is always hope for a brighter future. It's a testament to the resilience of the human spirit, the ability to overcome even the most devastating of betrayals. I hope that my story resonates with you and offers some measure of comfort and understanding. In summary, my life was shattered when I discovered my wife's affair with a local news anchor. Driven by betrayal and anger, I sought revenge by exposing their secret, leading to their public shaming and professional ruin. However, I soon realized that revenge was not as fulfilling as I had imagined, and I began the difficult process of forgiveness and healing. Just when I thought I had moved on, a shocking revelation about my children's paternity and my wife's long-term deception forced me to abandon my life entirely. Remember, the pursuit of revenge can be a hollow victory, and true healing lies in forgiveness and focusing on a better future, even when the past casts a long shadow. So, take heed of my tale, and may you find the strength to navigate your own challenges with grace and resilience. Thank you for listening.